Good morning. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professionals IGP. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professionals IGP. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us till the end. Honorable knowledge seekers, today I am your host for the morning. My name is Janatul Guria. I am from Bangladesh. Dear knowledge seekers, I am proud to be associated with IGP. IGP, a pure non-profit organization, is a social and ISO certified international educational and training institute. In the last 3 years, we have already served 35 million plus knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 450 plus professions and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professionals IGP and ISO 9001, 2015 and 10,002 2018 is the training facility for skill development which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global level market by providing professional qualifications. The Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institute that provides social work globally recognized and reputed. We serve students and community resources providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one's skill just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate professional generations all over the world. We distributed our services locally, nationally, and internationally to students, job seekers, job holders, and also for learners through respective campus location and distance learning platforms. We are an occupational and dependable institution. IGP is one of the famous online institutes from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product, it's a part of our human life. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminars, courses, awards, quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we are also trying to offer more than 100 plus premium services for free, like creating our portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and world knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can update all. Kids learning game websites, free courses, converter sets, and many more. We help to employer youth to learn, meet their expectations and dreams, and become highly skilled people. We implement several training programs, webinars, and offline online courses for youth and learners by professional trainers, speakers, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted to promote the education of their abilities and personalities. Spreading knowledge is love, light, and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and we serve them with good research and practice methods. We must have a genuine concern for the learners. We represent more diversity, growth, and innovation are required. To lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity, ISB members are committed to offering effective best quality service and continual improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill levels and knowledge. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable to us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable to us. Thank you. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we have already completed 1,405 webinars successfully. Wow. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we have already completed 1,545 webinars successfully. Wow. Dear IGP speakers, participants, and well-wishers, at this moment, this is a very important message for you all. We changed and designed our website www.eduigp.com. On the website, we have servers for everyone. Hope you will be with me. We already launched our new website where you can find all of our previous activities together with lots of new features. But one strong point is that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. So create your account for once with your proper information. Note that with your proper information, you will enjoy all features. With mismatched data, you can do anything here. From now on, you have to participate in live quiz competition on our website. We place Thrive. You have to join directly on our website. Now you can check all of our previous webinars with verified e-certificates. Now it's easier and time oriented because after this session, we will not provide you with any code for certification. You have to take part in one exam. After that, if you pass, you will receive your certificate. Otherwise, not. But you can take part in an exam unlimited till you pass. If you are an IGP speaker, you can download all your previous certificate. If you are a host of IGP, you can download your certificate of gratitude. If you are an online quiz competition winner, you can download your certificate of participation. If you are and on, if you are selected for a lifetime membership, then you can download a certificate of lifetime membership easily. Besides this, if you participated in any award function which organized combined support with IGP, you can download that also. You can instantly prepare and download 18 types of instant certificates for our website within a minute. Certificate of Global Professional Membership, Certificate of Influencer during the pandemic, Certificate of Active Knowledge Seeker, Certificate of Social Activities during the pandemic, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeking Campaign 2020, Certificate of Achievement IGP Seeking Campaign 2021, Certificate of IGP Knowledge Seeking Campaign 2022, Certificate of Webinar Series 1 Authentic Assessment in Teaching Learning, a Certificate of Participation in Webinar Series 2 Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment, Certificate of Participation in Webinar Series 3 Digital Classroom Engagement Tools, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 4 The New Trends in Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 5 Upskilling Organizational Leadership and Managerial Skills, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 6 Trends and Innovation in Mathematics Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 7 Research and Comprehensive Approach, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 8 Art in Teaching Special Program in the Arts, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 9 21st Century Tools in Teaching Mathematics, Certificate of IGP Corporate Ambassador, Certificate of IGP Campus Ambassador, which you can prepare and download within a minute. From now on, you can participate in 1000 plus international level quizzes with verified e-certificate. Teaching tips for teachers, health tips for parents, health tips for teens, gamification tools for teachers. You can join IGP alumni. You can check out our 50 plus premium services website for free and many more. Dear IGP Valuation, we promised previously, but lack of technical issues were late sending you on time. This is a great opportunity to collect your previous credentials. We solved all our problems on the website. Now you can enroll. Reset password and everything. You can check your dashboard for all webinar details. It's cordial request to you. Check all buttons and pages on our website. Surely, I can say you will be benefited. Thank you. But note that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. At present, we are going to start our 1546 program named Approaches Used in Literacy Criticism. And our today's speaker, Ma'am Trillian A. Guchian. Before I hand over to the stage to Ma'am, want to share a very little about our speaker, Academic Coordinator, Department Head, College Instructor, City Global College, Cambria City, Laguna. Now is a very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation, with her presentation. Now is a very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with her presentation. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning
Hello,
and
ma'am.
good afternoon, good
How are you?
evening. I am fine, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Now the stage is yours. Over to you, ma'am.
All right. So, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to every one of you. I am assigned to present to you some of the approaches used in literary criticism. But before we proceed to that, as to some of my fellow educators there on the other side of the globe, or even in Asia, or the countries in Asia, one thing or some things or points that are very important for us teachers or educators is to let our students realize the importance of reading and especially giving appreciation to any literary text. So some are the five most commonly reasons why we need to teach literature to our students, whether they are in a basic education or in tertiary level, is first one is to let them know themselves by reading texts or literary texts, even simple poems that would really reflect things that might be insightful to them, which will promote development not only on their psychological or way of thinking, also on the way they see the world around them. The second one is it also teaches us the past, as literature is the twin of history per se. If history would be saying or stating us the objectives of the happenings of the events happened during the past, literature will let us see, not only see, I use the wrong term, literature would let us feel the emotions or the feelings felt by the characters, the characters being portrayed in those history books. The third one is literature cultivates wisdom and let us see the perfect and beauty of the view in the world. Something like that. And then the fourth, it entertains. Literature is not only about improving or enhancing our academic status in terms of this particular field, but also it helps us to be entertained. So going forward, and my topic approaches use in literary criticism, actually, it is very difficult to discuss or to explain the comprehensive list of the different approaches used in literary criticism. So what I did was I just selected and I've just grouped these particular literary approaches into four, and then probably in the next session, if I'll be still one of the presenters of this institution, probably will be having the literary criticism using the particular approaches that we're going to discuss right now. All right, so before we proceed to the first school of literary criticism, I would like to just reiterate the meaning or the definition of literary criticism based on the link that where I have got it. So first things first, when we say literary criticism, it is a comparison, the analysis, and then the interpretation and the evaluation of the works of literature. So it means comparison with we are trying as literary critics, we are trying to compare different literary genres or literary outputs of this famous authors and poets, and also an analysis wherein we're going to use a systematic format or a systematic guideline on how are we going to understand the real meaning of the text, as well as interpretation. Somehow in this term, in literary criticism, yes, we put our subjective interpretation on it, but as academe or as educators, our interpretation should be backed up with facts and sound proofs, and also the evaluations of works. So it is also actually it is essentially an opinion, an intelligent opinion supported by evidence, which relates to the theme of the text, to the style, to the setting, or to the historical or political context or environment when and wherever the literary text was being written. So here are the four approaches used in literary criticism. The first school of thought, there you are. The first school of thought is focusing on the author focused. Second one is the text focused. The third one is the reader focused, and then the fourth one is the context focused. So let's proceed to the author focused. There. So as you can see, the central question that should be asked when we are going to criticize a particular text using the author focus, because it's just like we are trying to understand a particular text using a certain lens or a certain perspective. So the author focus is the first one of that kind of lens on how are we going to understand that particular text. So the central question of that is this: how can we understand the literary works based on by understanding their authors? So it means we need to know specifically the author or the person who have written that particular text or text. We have to find out who is that person, what are the things happened in his or her life that probably contributed heavily on the type of texts that he or she has produced. So under that particular approach is the biographical criticism, which means in this particular criticism, it focuses on the author's life, as what I have mentioned earlier. So it tries to gain better understanding of the literary work by understanding the person who wrote it. So I would like to use example of the renowned or the well-known national hero in our country here in the Philippines, which is Dr. Jose P. Rizal. So if you're going to criticize his undying novels, which are the Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, using this particular approach, we need to understand first the things that he has experienced, which contributed to him or which motivated him to write those novels, because he has witnessed the oppression that has been felt or that has been done to our fellow countrymen. So if you're going to read those particular novels, you would feel that, all right, these are the things that this particular author has seen and has felt during those times. That's that is what just I'm trying to tell. So it typically asks these questions. The first one is, what aspects of the author's life are relevant to the understanding the work? And then the second one, how are the author's personal beliefs encoded into the work? Actually, how are we going to find out the personal belief by the author? It is being revealed on the particular lines or on the script or on the script or on the lines being said by the certain characters, because in any literary piece there is or there are character or characters who represents the conscious state of mind of the writer. So that's it. And then the third one, does the work reflect the writer's personal experiences and concerns, and how not? So if we're going to use this particular criticism under author focused approach, these are the questions that we need to ponder about if we would like to be guided and we would like to be in synchronize using this particular approach. Another criticism under this author focused approach, aside from biographical, is the psychological. Actually, it is somehow a modern criticism or a new criticism included in this author focused. So, this criticism actually applies in psychological theory. So, it means as a literary critic or an educator or somebody who loves criticizing literary texts, if you're going to use this particular criticism, you have to apply certain theories found in psychology. So two of the most well-known psychologists that are being used, or let's say the theories that have been always been used in this kind of criticism, are the theories of Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalysis theory, and then the theory of Carl Jung. So how it is done. So it is said there that exploring the literature by psychological issues embedded in them. So it may analyze the story's characters. So by criticizing the way the character is doing something in the particular story or in a particular literary text, there is an equivalent reason or there are reasons supported by the psychology or psychological school of thought. So it is also being revealed by the use of the language and the imagery. When we said imagery, by the way, I would like to reiterate it. When we said imagery, these are the mental images created by the writer. So these are the language used by the writer, by the author, and letting the readers feel, see, or hear or smell something inside of the text. And then the author's motivations of writing. What are the reasons of writing this particular literary text, and any other aspect of literary work from psychological perspective? Actually, this particular criticism is very trendy. Actually, if I'm going to use a Gen Z term, it is a very trendy particular criticism nowadays. And then its emphasis is on reading the work as an expression of the author's unconscious processes. So these are the questions that should be asked if we're going to use this particular criticism. The first one, what psychological forces or factors are involved in the words and behaviors of the characters, especially thoughts and motivations of the characters in a particular story? And the analysis of those particular things in our literary text are being supported and being backed up by the guidelines and theories in psychology. Another question would be is this: do dreams or psychological disorders play a part in the work? Yeah. So actually these particular literary texts, it serves as our tool to understand that there are some disorders or psychological disorders happening in a lighter view. Actually, say, let's say for example you're going to read something, something like this, that there is a man who loves to kill something, he feels like it's just a hobby and so on and so forth. So that uh since it's being written in a particular book, it's just somehow lighter in a sense. But if you're going to criticize it, it's a very serious matter that should be addressed by a medical expert in psychology. Third, how did the author's life and experiences affect his or her intellectual and emotional formation? How the psychological impact evident in the text and the author's act of writing? In other genre and or in other literary texts, one of the well-known writers who uses this kind of method or this kind of method of writing or psychological way of writing is Edgar Allan Poe, because he was one of the best detective story writers, and some of his literary texts are really good or are very good to be used in this kind of criticism. And lastly, what unintended meanings might the author have embedded or encoded in the work? All right, so those are the criticisms well known in the author focus. I would like to say this, in under the author focus approach in literary criticism, we don't have only two. There are many. So I've just included the two most commonly used: the psychological criticism and then the biographical criticism. The second approach is text focus. If author focus is a kind of approach in literary criticism that focuses heavily on the side of the author, why he or she has written that kind of particular text. Text focus tries to understand the literary work in terms of themselves. So it means we don't have any care, or we don't care who was the writer or who have written this text, or what is he or she thinking while writing the text. What is our main concern using this approach is only on the text. That is why the central idea or question in this kind of approach is this: how can we understand literary works in terms of themselves? Okay, so only the text. So we're going to focus our criticism on what are the present literary devices or ideas in the text. So under this approach, we have the formalism. So as being stated there, it focuses on the literary text itself. So aside from the questions about its authors or the contexts or on its historical or cultural basis, it focuses only on the structure of the text. So it takes a story or a poem on its own terms, viewing it as a self-contained unit of meaning. So we're going to pay attention, or we're going to focus our analysis on what are the things present only in the text. That's it. And it tries to understand the text by paying attention to the specific specific form of the text. So we'll be putting our emphasis on how each lines are being written, how many words or what are the words being repeated over time, diba? So what are the literary devices being used? What type of language being used? so on and so forth. Next is, these are the things that we should ask ourselves if we would like to use this particular approach for criticism. First one, how does the structure of the work reveal its meaning? So let's say, for example, it is a poem. Um, are there lines being repeated over time? Or on each page ba in a particular novel, are there any particular lines repeated? Kasi if that is the case, probably the text would like to let the reader see or feel that the text is really trying to say something on that particular matter, something like that. And the next is, how do the form and content of the work illuminate each other? So, is the content, or is the main idea or ideas presented of the text is in line with the form, or yeah, in the form or style being used on that particular text? And then third, what recurring patterns, just like what I have said earlier, are there in the form, and what is their effect? How does the use of imagery really is a very good tool or a very good literary device, because when I was a kid, I could really feel and see something that I haven't seen in the physical world. By just I just try to see and feel those things by reading the text. Actually, we would know that the writer is a very good writer if he or she is able to use literary device, this imagery well. The language used, the various literary devices, and to establish the work's meaning. And lastly, how do the characters evolve the course of the narrative? So, um, are there many characters that change from the so there are different types of characters, and then in literature, so there are static character, complex characters, so on and so forth. So, and how does this interact with other literary elements? And that's it. So we're done with the second one, and then let's proceed to the third approach, which is the reader focused approach. So first one, we have the author focused, wherein the analysis, the interpretation, or the evaluation of the text is heavily influenced by who have written it, or who is the writer. The second one is, we don't care the text focus, we don't care on the writer or on the author. We just focusing our interpretation on the text. The third one is the reader focus, which means the interpretation, the analysis, or the evaluation should be coming from the reader. Yun. So, as being stated there, the central question under this kind of approach is, how can we understand literary works by understanding the subjective experience of reading them? What does it mean? It only means that every reader has its own way, or has his or her own way understanding a particular text. Let's say, for example, I have read a book like I have read the the story, or the mythology of Iliad. Probably these are the understandings that I have learned by reading that particular um, um, Iliad, 'di ba? But the other reader has a different way, or has a different perspective in understanding that. That's what we mean by using this particular approach. So under this reader focus approach, we have the reader response criticism. It says there that the reader as much as the text. So it seeks to understand how a given reader comes together with a given literary work to produce in a unique reading. Actually, reader focus approach gives justification in the idea that every person has different way of viewing things. Diba? So, probably, while reading this particular novel, these are the things that I have learned, given the background or the academic background that I have. And the other person, um, he or she has different learning, something like that, or has different appreciation that he or she has obtained by reading that particular text. Kasi it comes into it comes into consideration the background of the reader per se. So it has to believe the reader focused approach. The first one is that The role of the reader cannot be omitted from our understanding in literature. Kasi some of the literary critics, they believe that the beauty of the literature depends on how it is able to touch the life of the reader, or how it is able to change something from the perspective of the reader, or how how does this particular literary text is able to teach us something from this person, something like that. And then the second one is that the readers do not passively consume the meaning presented to them by an objective literary text, rather they actively make the meaning. Ano siya? So those are the two beliefs under the reader focused approach. So these are the typically asked questions using this particular approach. The first one is, who is the reader? Let's say for let's use this as an example. Let's say the poem of Angela Manalang Gloria, Soledad. It's a sonnet. It only has 14 lines. It was written during, if I were not mistaken, it was written during the time when English is really imposed to be used here in the Philippines. So let's say we have three readers. The first one is a 11-year-old student. The second reader is a 25-year-old working person. And then the third one is a 35-year-old, let's say, working person. So these three readers will have three different interpretations, will have three different understanding on that particular text. Why? Because they will try to understand it based on the existing background that they have. So the student will try to understand it, will try to analyze it based on what a student, or how does the student think, diba? Just like the second reader, and then the third one reader. So who is the implied reader? The one posited by the text. And then what kind of memories, knowledge, and thoughts does the text evoke from the reader? And so how exactly does the interaction between the reader and the text create meaning on both the text side and the reader side? So another is, how does this meaning change from one person to another person? Or if the same person who reads it, diba? Kasi sometimes we as readers, we put the meaning, we create the meaning. So what I have learned in this particular text might be different from yours, or what you have learned might be different from mine. Diman? Ganun lang siya. But we have one single thing in common. We have understood the theme or the central meaning of that particular text. And the last approach is the context focused approach. If the first approach is focusing on the writer, who is the writer, the second one, the text focused approach, focusing only on the product or on the text per se. And then the third one is the reader approach, which is focusing on who are the readers, or who is the reader of the text. The context approach focuses on the context, or should I say, the environment when and where the text was being written. So the central question, or the guiding question of this approach is this: how can we how can we understand literary works by understanding the contextual circumstances? So when we said contextual, it means the setting or the environment when it was being written. So it has a three main subcategories. The historical, the societal, and then the political. But I have just included there the cultural, out of which they emerge. So it means we're going to understand the text based on its historical basis. First, when it was written, we're not going to understand it. We're not going to criticize it or analyze it based on on our present setting. We're going to understand or criticize it based on when it was being written. Let's say it was being written in 1940s. We have to find out, we have to discover what are the prominent historical events happened during the time it was being written. Because this particular approach believes that these particular historical events or prominent historical events might be the contributory factor why that particular text was being written like that, something like that. The second one is understanding the societal or the social milieu, yun, the social milieu during the time it was being written. Let's say, for example, during that time in the society, patriarchal is very prominent, or women are during the time women are believed to be saying yes and yes and yes always and are not allowed to go to school, di ba, mga ganyan. And then the third one is a political milieu, wherein we have to discover as well and we have to understand as well the political system present during that time, something like that. And then I have here in my slide the emphasis is the historical criticism. Ayan. So the historical criticism under this approach focuses on the historical as well as on the social circumstances that surrounded in the writing of the texts. So it also pay attentions to the biographical facts about the author actually, and as well as the influence of the social, political, national, and international events when and where the text was being written. So, for example, we have this particular text during college. I am not so sure if you are familiar with this, but um, the title is Lord Randall. Actually, our instructor opted or let us to sing that actually. So some of the lines that I can still remember from that particular text is, "Where have you been, Lord Randall, my son? Where have you been, my handsome young man?" And then the other line by the stated by the character, by the main character, "I have been in the green mood, mother mac my bed soon, for I'm wearied with hunting in fain would lie down." So another line, "Oh, what did you did there, Lord Randall, my son?" The mother is asking, "And why? What did you did there, handsome young man?" "I met my true love, mother, mac my bed soon, for I'm wearied with hunting, in fain would lie doon." So the character would say that he has met somebody, he has met a lovely lady. And then the mother asks again, "And what did she give you, Lord Randall, my son? And what did she give you, my handsome young man?" So the Lord Randall responded, "Eels fried in pan, mother mock my bed soon, for I'm wearied with hunting and fain would lie doon." And then sabi, what this particular main character said that that lovely lady that he has met in the woods gave him eel. It's a during that time it was a very expensive fish. It was being fried. So yeah. So what happened? I'm not going to write to state the entire poem, but the story is this: the lovely lady gave Lord Randall eels fried or fried eel, and then Lord Randall ate some of it, and then ate some of his hounds, dogs, have eaten as well that particular food, and then he found out that that food has poison. So as the poem ends, and as the mother finds out that his only son or his son Lord Randall is having difficulty in his life because he has eaten a poisonous food or a food with a poison, let's say something like that, the mother asks what are the things that Lord Randall will give to her and to her daughter, to her sister's son, and so forth. So, if you're going to put an analysis of it, that particular poem would say or would show that during the time that that particular text was written, women can only be a prominent one if he or if she is able or she was able to marry a very wealthy man. They just need to dress up. They just need to look beautiful during that time. Something like that. And then men, diba? Men are known to be the leaders or the directors of everything. They are the only people during that time that can own hectares of land, so on and so forth. Yun. So actually, it's when we do criticism, it's better if that should be done in different manner, because context focused approach is very tricky and very lengthy type of criticism, because you really have to find out what is really happening, or what are the events present that time. So if you're going to use this particular approach, you have to deal with history. Yeah. And then also pay attention on the words being used. Kasi there are words that were only used this particular era, di ba? So there are also words that are being used in this particular era again. So as a critic, or as a literary critic, we have to be familiar with those things. So that's what we mean by context focused. So under context focus, aside from historical criticism, we have okay. I am not so sure why it was not here, but we also have the feminism approach. So later. So these are the typical questions asked. So how does the work reflect the historical period in which it was being written? Kasi in this particular approach, aside from being entertained on the narrative, on the storyline of that particular text, as readers we are able to see the glimpse of the past. Let's say for example, the longest epic, the longest English epic in the world, Beowulf. By just reading Beowulf, or by just watching the story of Beowulf, aside from discovering or knowing who Beowulf is, who is his opponents, Grendel, and then his mother, so on and so forth, we are also able to see how how did people during that time live, di ba? Yung mga ganyan. So that is the beauty of the context focused approach. Next, what specific historical events influence the author? Ayun. So let's say for example, the author, because this is what really happening during his time, he was motivated to write something like this, so that the other readers would know that these are the things happened during the time it was being written. And then also, how important is the work's historical context to understanding it? So let's just say that using this approach really requires the critic to be really acquainted with the history. So aside from analyzing, well, when we said analyzing, or yeah, when we said analyzing, we are using a particular guideline or format. Aside from analyzing this particular text, that we should also have the other side, the true historical events happen to that, because we're going to see if our interpretation during that time is aligned with the historical events or happenings that really motivated the writer to write it. Yun. And the next is, how does the work represent an interpretation of its time and culture? So, let's say, let's use the sample of Beowulf. So we would know by reading or by watching that story or that particular epic, we would know na, okay, during the time, people always love to go, not love the term, or they always wanted to conquer, ba? To conquer other tribes. We will also discover that, they love to drink an alcohol which is called mead, something like that. They love to make merrymaking after doing this particular voyage, so on and so forth. Okay, this is how they dressed like mga ganyan. So that's what it only that is what this particular approach is letting us to experience when you're going to use this as an our approach in literary criticism. Then, this is what I'm telling to you. Aside from historical criticism, we also have the feminist criticism. So, it focuses actually on the prevailing societal beliefs about women in attempt to expose the oppression of women on various levels by patriarchal systems, both contemporary and historical. So, this particular criticism heavily concerned with the stories, or we can use this on the stories or literary texts that shows prevailing beliefs and issues regarding to to the equality of all genders actually. Yun siya. So next is, what are the questions or typical questions being asked when we use this particular approach? The first one is, how does the work portray the lives of the women? Pa? We know it from the course of history. I am very happy. I'm not so sure if it's already 100% that we are all equal, but because of different beliefs and perceptions and way of thinking things, maybe probably we should respect one another. But I do believe as a woman, we should have an equal opportunity with other men. Not not in a sense of if I if men can do this kind of work, I can also do this. What I said is, if men have this opportunity, then women can also have that opportunity, something like that. Okay, and then how are female characters being portrayed? So how are the relationships between men and women being portrayed? So if you're a kind of a critic and then you are really paying attention on the roles of the male and female character, it means you're already using the feminist criticism. Diba? So does this enforce sexual and gender stereotypes or challenge them? And how does a specific language of the literary work reflect gender or sexual stereotypes? So on and so forth. So, ayan. So before I end my presentation, actually, I would like to say that in literary criticism, we can use different lenses or we can use different approaches on how are we going to understand the particular text. So which sums up with this, let's just remember this. It is important to recognize and remember that not all literary works are equally amenable to being examined through all critical and theoretical lenses. So probably this text, we can criticize the text using historical approach, but we cannot use the other approach naman. There are chances that there would be chances like that. But what I do want to say is that um there is no single thing, or there is no single method or methodology that we can use to appreciate a particular literary text. And what is the main, or what is the importance of everything, of any kind of a methodology or whatever methodology we use, is that the important thing is this: we as readers, we're able to see, to feel what is the very reason, or what are the things that the reader, that the text or the author has seen or has learned, or what are the reasons why he or she has written that particular text. And if this particular text is able to help us improve something in ourselves, let's say, if before you think that this particular opinion is correct, but because of reading this particular text, you realize na, okay, so based on this text, based on the things happen on the characters inside of this story, I have found out that I this should not be like this. So as a reader, if you're able to change something in yourself that really make you a better person, or a better person, um whatever methodology that you have used, we could say, I could say that you really you really able to obtain the main mission of literary criticism, or by appreciating that particular literary texts. So hope to see you soon again, and these are my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seekers surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seekers can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seekers. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation. Now, ma'am, it's time for our question and answer session, which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinars. Honorable Ma'am, please stay with us. After a short video, we'll be back in our session part 2, which is question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have webinar certification and online quiz competition. Ma'am, our first question is how important literacy criticism in today's generation?
Okay, so the question is how important literary criticism in today's generation. All right, so I will try to answer this in a way that in a way that I am also, how should I say, I'm also aware that most of the students nowadays are not really into reading, diba? So not mostly into reading. There are some. There are some people lang, there are some students who are fond of reading, but the importance of literary criticism in this today's generation is that, as what I have said or mentioned last earlier, literary criticism provides us or gives us an opportunity to have different lenses of viewing things. So we can aside from using the approaches in literary criticism in analyzing a particular text, we can also use this in understanding the social events happening in our generation. Let's say, for example, in your particular community, let's say I would use here in our country, I would say that you would see that most of the teenagers behave like this and that. You would think, why is that? So probably you can use the historical criticism or the approach or the guideline or the approach or the procedure of historical criticism. From the course of time, you would know what happened to the kind of students or teenagers during the time of this, and what are the particular factors that contributed why they are behaving like this nowadays. So we would know that because of the advancement of the technology, they tend to focus more on technology. They want everything to be in a fast track, no? So in just one click, everything is there. So in reading, it would be it would require somebody to put much patience to read each page and to savor every details from it, something like that. Let's say, for example, you would be watching your television and you would see something on the news na, okay, there's another problem regarding to our government, so on and so forth. So in literary criticism, we also have this diba I said it's also using the different lenses. We can use the political milieu, or the process of understanding the political milieu. What is happening now? So so these happenings, what are the reasons or what are the factors that contributed to the present happenings by looking back on the happenings happened in terms of the political context. And wrapped up, literary criticism would really help us to see something or to understand things in different ways, in different approaches. We are able to discover things not only using one single method or methodology. So that's the beauty of literary criticism. And to add up, um, if you are fond of using the approaches done in literary criticism, you would also develop this particular skill of being very particular or very good in analyzing and interpreting statements or texts. You are very yes, you are very careful or very, how should I say, you are making that particular skill wherein you are going to be very cognizant of the things happening. Ayun po. So I hope I was able to answer that. Ano?
Ma'am, our next question is is it essential to use literacy criticism in understanding literature? Each resource has its own ways in dealing with their particular context.
Okay, so why is it essential to use okay, from Sir Austin again. So why is it essential to use literary criticism in understanding literature if people has its own belief? As what I have mentioned earlier, when we said literary criticism, somehow it's subjective. So it becomes a method or it becomes systematic if you're going to use a particular methodology. And under the umbrella of literary criticism are the approaches. So I am not saying that the belief or everyone's belief are not correct or so on and so forth, but again and again, and by using literary criticism, we are able to see that, or we were able to realize, to find out the meaning of the particular literature by using different lenses, different approaches, not only the belief or the perspective of the reader, and some sort of saying that we are being guided, just like in research, diba? So, we have different disciplines, we have different academe, but we're going to use research, fundamental things of research. We have to do the RRL, we have to do the chapter 1 and chapter 3, so on and so forth. So, just that is also literary criticism. We are not only giving our interpretation based on our perspective, but we are also supporting or backing up the facts, or the proper way of analyzing and interpreting a particular text. All right, so from Miss Evelyn Waperi, so are there any limitations to literary criticism? I cannot answer it in a direct forward or straightforward manner, but I would say in any kind of interpretation or analysis, there are strengths and weaknesses. But in attempt to answer this particular one, let's say for example, this particular approach or this particular way of particular criticism cannot explain something, or if we're going to use this particular method in analyzing this particular text, cannot explain the thing that we want to realize or to discover, we could use another method or another criticism that would really suffice what we need, something like that. We can use different approaches and methods so that we are able to somehow to address that particular limitation. It doesn't mean naman na, let's say, I would read this particular novel, I would only use the feminist criticism. It's not like that. Based on what I have learned, you can use feminist as well as historical. O kaya naman, or another way, we can use feminist and then can use tawag dito, context focus, let's say something like that. It's just that literary criticism offers us different ways or angles or different views on how are we going to see or understand a particular text, something like that. How can we use literary criticism in our daily lives? I would like to answer this in a personal manner. Actually, I am fond, when I was still a student, I am fond of Greek mythologies. I am fond of classics actually. And then, of course, as I read these particular mythologies and stories, I would really want to analyze this not only on the perspective of a student, but also on the perspective of the writer, on the perspective of the text per se. So by doing those things, I am already using literary criticism, which contributed to the knowledge that I have gained through time. So since I have found out that okay, that because of literary criticism, I was able to discover that Greek people believes that this and that. Okay, because of that, they are able to create stories like this. And then because of that particular learning, which was being helped by using this. Okay, okay, skip po. Yes po, Miss Castro. I'll try to finish the answer to the previous person who asked a question. I was able to can still remember the stories of this classic, especially in mythology, given the fact that there are many stories there, and I can share it to my siblings, to my cousins, to my students. Let's say, for example, I see a sunflower. You know what? The story behind it's because of Apollo, the goddess of sun, and then the particular lover of his, something like that. And I was able to still put it in my mind, to imbibe it in my mind, because I enjoyed the process of using the approach done by using literary criticism. So that's something like that. Hi, ma'am. You mentioned that today's generation is not into reading. Yes. Can you give us suggestion on how to make literary criticism interesting for those learners who are not at all into reading? Actually, this is a very challenging question, Ma'am Castro. um, okay, so normally, this is what I do. So I am a very conventional educator, and I found out, I observed that most students doesn't want to read, something like that. So what I did in one of my classes this, um, let's say a poem. Right? So instead of letting them recite the poem, I would require them to think of a song that they can use that they can use to so that they can sing the poem. Diba? Let's say the poem of Lord Randall. I'm not a good singer, but I was still able to remember the lines because we were opted to sing that using the rhythm of a particular song. And then after that, I would I would let the students savor the lyrics, and then from time to time I would ask HOTS questions, and then I would ask that, oh, while singing the lines, or let's say of group one, what do you think is happening in this particular stanza, something like that. So it means, since we cannot put in instant, in just one click, we cannot let our students to love reading, probably we can use other things or other methods with for them to appreciate literature, diba? Kasi letting the students love reading versus letting the students appreciate literary criticism are two different things. There are two different challenging things. So let's focus on the literary criticism. I would always normally use different methods or techniques for them to appreciate literature. I also have this activity wherein there is a story, because I know that students will not read the novel. I know that, and I know that they will only Google it. I I ask them to group I asked them to group the class into four, and then okay, for chapter one, group one, you will think of a you would summarize it. You would think of you would create a jingle or a song about it. The group two, you're going to act it in front. Group three, you're going to make some TikTok about it, so on and so forth. And then by that, students would appreciate na, you know what, students, you are already using literary criticism. And then after you get their attention, that's the time that you introduce to them the different approaches. Now, you know what, students, very good, you're able to do the first part of literary criticism, but don't you know that there are many methods that we can use to understand the text. And the other hand, on loving reading, actually it's really a very challenging one. It cannot be done by a teacher only, or by the by single person, but it's a it's a challenging work kasi, ma'am, actually sa reading in today's generation, kasi technology is there. So what I always do is that, let's say, before we proceed, or before we proceed to the next lesson, ha, I'll be giving this to you, the handout. Please read this, and the next meeting, I would ask questions to anyone, and then to those who are able to answer this one, this will be your reward, something like that, or this you will be exempted. So you're going to use reinforcement, so on and so forth. Ayun po.
Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topics. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable ma'am, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new day. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Sorry ma'am, I wasn't able to pay attention on the statements that you have given po. I'm very sorry. Yes po.
Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topics. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable ma'am, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new day. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Okay, thank you so much po. Thank you so much po. Thank you so much to your institution for giving us time to share what I have learned in this particular topic. And thank you for those who have to those who have asked their questions. Thank you po.
Dear IGP knowledge seekers, it's time for the most engaging part of our webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity participation process. Now the time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Now time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. For some technical problem, we cannot continue our quiz from the website. So to join our quiz, you have to go www.slido.com, and today quiz code is 3256505. Our first question is Latin phrase used in literacy criticism to imply arbitrary judgment based on the preconceived. Option 1, effective fallacy. Option 2, a priori. Right answer is a priori. 32% people are right here. In the leaderboard, first position is Shamimara Begum, second is Huzefa Hussain Gatto, third is Lia Falcano, fourth is Plomi Ragwal Salmizo, fifth is Abdul Bashar El Jamu. Our second question is this is the term used in literacy criticism to designate the distinct type or categorized into which literacy works. Convention generally. Right answer is generally 86% people are right here. And in the leaderboard, first position is Tamima Begum, second is Lia Falcano, third is Huzaifa Hussain Datto, fourth is Abdul Bashar J. Jamut, fifth is Kamrimila Vijay. Next question is unreliable narrator is the term used in literacy criticism for a first person narrator who cannot be relied on. Who is? Option 1 Nelly Dean, option 2 Lockwood. Correct answer is Lockwood. 45% people are right here. And in the leaderboard, first position is Leah Falcano, second is Camrymila B. Zain, third is Priscilla Annie M. Kengal, fourth is Keifer Rivera, fifth is Rodora Ulan Medway. Fourth question is psychoanalytic theory as used in literacy criticism seeks to understand a text using the same theory by option 1 Sigmund Freud, option 2 Carl Jung. Right answer is Sigmund Freud. In the leaderboard, first position is Leah Falcano, second is Carmela Bizet, third is Priscilla Annie M. Kengal, fourth is Evelyn P. Waberi, fifth is Gracia William Bottle. Our fifth question is dash is used in literacy criticism to denote an expected uncertainty about the outcome of the plot. Option 1 detachment, option 2 suspense. Correct answer is suspense. 67% people are right here in the leaderboard. First position is Leah Falcano, second is Carmela Vizay, third is Tricia Annie M. Kengel, fourth is Tricia William Botonis, fifth is Mary Jane Corporas. Sixth question is for a literary work you can discuss in this part the critical approaches used in the text. Option 1 introduction, option 2 review or critique. Right answer is review or critique. 68% people are right here. In the leaderboard, first position is Leah Falcano, second is Carmela Vizane, third is Tricia N.E.M. Kengel, fourth is Gracia William Botonis, fifth is Tishering Penjo. Seventh question is it is an initial criticism and judgment in major literacy approaches. Option 1 philosophical criticism, option 2 formalist criticism. Right answer is formalist criticism. 38% people are right here. In the leaderboard, first question is Leah Falcano, second is Carmela Vizay, third is Canvi Isai Vitikari, fourth is Crystal N.E.M. Kengel, fifth is Ruby Tiwari. Our eighth question is what literacy device is used when Oberon approaches him in the same hallway Julia did? Option 1 motif, option 2 foreshadowing. Correct answer is foreshadowing. 86% people are right here. And in the leaderboard, first person is Leah Falcano, second is Carmela Vizane, third is Kimbu Isai Gitwikari, fourth is Crystal Annie M. Kengel, fifth is Mark Dominic B. D. Lacruz. Our ninth question is what are two literary devices used in literary criticism? Option 1 tone and smileys, option 2 symbolism and tone. Right answer is symbolism and tone. 74% people are right here. In the leaderboard, first position is Leah Falcano. Second is Carmela Evi Zain. Third is Kianwi Isai Gutikari. Fourth is Crystal Annie M. Kengel. Fifth is Mark Dominic B. D. Lacruz. Our last and final question is identify the approaches to literacy criticism described in each statement below. Option 1 feminist, option 2 historical. Correct answer is feminist. 32% people are right here. Uh, Congratulations, Crystal Annie M. Kengale. First position is Crystal Annie M. Kengale. Second is Leah Falcano. Third is Civilian Pioveri. Fourth is Camelia B. Zain. Fifth is Canvi Gitikari. Congratulations to our webinar online quiz competition winners top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes to finalize the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our website and official Facebook page Institute of Global Professionals. Congratulations to our webinar online quiz competition winners top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes to finalize the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our website and official Facebook page Institute of Global Professionals. Congratulations to our webinar online quiz competition winners top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes to finalize the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our website and official Facebook page Institute of Global Professionals. At the end of our session, we can say properly PDUD skills never stop learning because life never stops teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit the end live button, again wants to thank all the IGP knowledge seekers for your active participation as well as see you in the next session. Thank you.